Have you ever had a moment where you realize that everything you've hoped and wished for may actually happen? Well, for me, when this article came out that we're going to look at today, it was one of those moments for me. It felt like a real turning point, kind of a breakthrough moment. It felt really special. And I don't know if you had a similar moment. You may have actually found that the emotions were a little bit more complex than you thought they would be, and we'll talk more about how I felt about this later on. But there are 3 points that I want to make today. We're gonna talk about one like real learning point from this article, and then we're gonna look inside the article, and I want to point something out, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit more about my feelings around the article, which I think could be really interesting hopefully for you and anyone in the community. And by the way, if you're thinking, what happened to Heard Online? You're supposed to be like reviewing scientific articles. I know it's become kind of 50-50. It's become a lot of like almost like introspection, like looking at what the movement, how it's becoming like recognized in media. So anyway, things often don't become exactly what you plan them to do. But for the foreseeable future, I think we're going to do more of the kind of traditional Heard Online if that's what you've been missing. But anyways, let us jump in here. And I want to tell you a little bit of a backstory to see why this article that we're going to look at, like, how did it happen? Well, Sonia, who's been a guest twice, she's in Talking Insomnia number 90, where she tells her own insomnia story, and then Talking Insomnia number 122, where she comes back after, leaving the struggle, and she has been a TED talker at her university up in Alberta, Canada. And now she tells the story in Talking Insomnia number 122 of how, she was excited about her story becoming broadcasted on TED's YouTube channel, and how actually it was censored. It was her talk was listed as unlisted, which means you cannot find it by browsing. You have to have the link to be able to see it. You know what happened? When someone named Avi, who's an editor, a tech editor, heard about this, he was curious. He was like, why did TED decide to censor this? Or why did they decide to do this, to publish this as unlisted? And, that actually led to him thinking, maybe there's something here. And that led to him contacting me and Coach Beth, as well as Sonia, and that became this article. So the first kind of interesting point I want to make here is that what we try to suppress wants to be heard, and it finds a way. And it's so interesting how these truths are so universal. It applies within us when there's kind of, our brain has some message, some warning thought, or some uncomfortable emotion. It wants us to receive that message. When we try to suppress it, it actually is amplified. The brain is like, you got to hear this. Same thing in the like macro. When TED says, no, we can't broadcast this, we have to like censor this or keep this, keep this on the down low, then people are like, why? Well, there's something there. Like, it wants to be heard. Like, messages want to be heard, and they find a way. So I think that was really, really interesting. So with that first point made, let us jump in and take a look at this this article. So it came out just around like Friday, December 23rd. As the NBC. Here's the title. And I think it was very well, nicely written, and it tells a little bit about my story and the story of Sonia and our philosophy. But I thought the thing I wanted to read to you, I thought we could talk a little bit about, was how CNBC, they reached out to another sleep expert. Let me actually just read it. CNBC reached out to another sleep expert to get an industry perspective on Erikson's approach. And by approach is that basically this idea that we can think of insomnia more as a phobia than anything else. And then we continue reading. Michael Breus is a clinical psychologist and fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. He runs the Sleep Doctor website, which was launched 2008 and describes itself as a leading authority in the field of sleep health. Breus took a look at Erikson's website and offered his thoughts via email. This sounds like a disaster, he wrote. This sounds like a disaster. And, even before the article came out, I talked to the author, and he told me what Dr. Breus had thought. So I got a chance to respond. And when he read Brace's email, I was actually quite surprised. I thought the tone would be something like, well, maybe skeptical, like, well, there are some good points here, but maybe this doesn't seem aligned with what I think, and something like that. But actually, the response was much more like, oh, this is a disaster. Like, this is like giving people false hope. There's absolutely nothing this up. This is. I think he actually says something like he's not even a real doctor. He's just and so it was a much stronger response than I'd expected. And of course, like when you hear something right away, you feel a little bit like kind of hurt feelings, like why is somebody so anti what I'm doing and things of that nature. But then you ponder it a little bit, and then you realize that this is just how change happens all the time. When something is new, when there's kind of a new way to think of things, it challenges everyone who has a, let's say, traditional view of things, and that person of course becomes like, feels threatened. And when we feel threatened, we're scared, we want to like we want to we naturally want to stop the new thing, right? And so I think that's my second point here, is simply that we are all like that. Like we're all naturally afraid of change. And you often hear that first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they try to stop you, and then you become kind of the new thing, right? And I think we have been in this, like, first they ignore you, like very few people have paid attention to what we're talking about here in our approach to insomnia and sleep. But that's starting to change, and I think we might get into the, like, they ridicule you, they try to say like, oh, this is nonsense, and then they try to stop you. So I think this is just like, we're naturally seeing we're starting to move towards kind of the first few steps of this progress, and we're all naturally afraid of change. We're all human. Dr. Biss is human, I'm human, you're human, we're all the same. But I think that's something I wanted to just highlight and point out. And now finally here, actually, as many of you know, like, I've often said that I'm, I really want to like make a dent in the sleep universe, like, change how the world looks at sleep, and even beyond, like inner struggles, like really make a difference in how the world views inner struggles, and help, make a difference in that sense. And now when this is the first time that like a large news outlet has really taken a serious look at what we're thinking, our philosophy, our school of thought. And when this is published, to me, it's like it makes me see that it's possible. Like, it's possible to actually see this happen more often. Other news outlets may pick up, and the movement can really spread. And then on one hand, like, that's exciting. The vision feels like more realistic than ever. And then immediately, when you feel that way, then there's this kind of like other part of you that goes like, but is that really what you want? Like, isn't things quite nice the way they are right now? Meaning, having a pretty small community. I can check every comment on the YouTube channel. I I feel connected, to the community, but also all of us within the coach, all of the coaches, we know each other. We are like a very small group. Like, it's very, very nice. And so you have this like almost like conflicting feelings about this. But I'll just say, when I bring this up with my wife, she says, well, there's nothing you can do. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know if I want to grow like that much, or the movement to grow, or like our services to grow that much. And then she goes like, but there's nothing you can do. And this is so true. Like, you can't control anything really. So I think all one can do is just be in this moment. In this moment, I'm really happy this article came out. I know it's going to lead some people. I know it led a lot of people. Maybe you arrived here because of this article, and that's wonderful and that's exciting. And so, yeah, really happy about the now. And that's all we have. So I will conclude there and say, as always, thanks you for tuning in, for your support. And tomorrow we have our live Q&A. So if you have questions, it's going to be 11 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. It's going to be myself and Coach Veronica. And we have an announcement as well. So hope to see you there, or some other time really soon. But that's it for today. That's all for Hard Online today. Bye-bye.